Did you see this new ruling that they've brought in to do with video games for
No.
teenagers? Oh
Oh
man,
yeah, no, I did see that. I did
yeah.
see that. And so what I will say is that China looks at other countries around the region and around the world, like and we'll use Korea as an example, and then says, well, here's what we would like to be like, and here's what we don't want to be like. And so we don't want, according to China, is a bunch of kids spending their life playing video games, and we don't want a bunch of young people modeling themselves after what we, from a Chinese perspective, see as effeminate Korean movie stars. And so what China does is pass rules. This is the way it should be. Men should act like men. Kids should not watch video games. And you know, every parent in the world faces this kind of thing. Like when your kid is on playing video games or on social media all day, or they start wearing funky clothes or whatever, every parent says, well, maybe we should have a rule. And I just think that with China, their whole thing is everything. I mean, it's a country largely ruled by engineers. They have an engineering, their government has an engineering philosophy of life, social engineering, environmental engineering, the Three Gorges Dam and the South to North Water Diversion Project and all of these other things. Everything can be engineered according to them. And again, that's why those of us who believe in open societies, and I do, we just need to really invest our energy in making sure that our open societies can function.
What does this masculinizing, this manlying of the Chinese population look like? They're just trying to create a breed of alpha males walking around. What's going on there?
It looks like it. I mean, so I think it's a contrast. What they're trying to do is contrast to at least their perception of Korean and Japanese men. And there's just a popular kind of way of looking for Korean movie stars, male movie stars in K-pop, that I think China has a lot of disdain for in Japan, which had kind of an overemphasized vision of kind of aggressive masculinity in the 30s and the first half of the 40s. Now there's a popular model. I can't remember the exact word, but it's something like vegetarian men who are perceived, and I would love to vegetarian, who are perceived as these kind of wimpy men who go to these whatever they're called, mistress cafes or whatever, and remain virgins until they're 600 years old or whatever the stereotype is. And I think China is trying to say, well, that's not what we want. I mean, our model are these rugged people, rugged founders of the state who were engaged in the Long March. And again, because China's history, the Chinese Communist Party's history, is in many ways a fabrication. They have to over-invest in that fabrication. And that's why China, every year, they have these massive World War II victory parades. And it's true that Chinese people fought in the Second World War, but the Chinese Communist Party played a very minimal role in fighting the Japanese.
Hang on, Jamie, roll it back for a second. China has a World War II victory party every year.
Yes.
What the fuck?
It's a commemoration. No. Well, I mean, lots of countries do that. I mean, the United States has it. But the thing is, the Chinese entity that spent a lot of its time and energy fighting the Japanese was the government under the nationalists of Chiang Kai-shek. The communists under Mao hardly fought the Japanese. And what their mission was to maintain their power so they could fight the communists, which they did, particularly after the Second World War. So it's preposterous that the Chinese Communist Party is celebrating this victory over the Japanese, that they didn't play a significant role in bringing about. But again, it's this point where China has this kind of imaginary view, and then they work to try to make it real. Again, like when the Chinese Communist Party talks about, well, China has this ancient civilization, which is absolutely true. But they hardly mention that during the Cultural Revolution, China was destroying its own history. It was burning and destroying its own manuscripts, smashing its greatest art, and so in many ways, and then murdering so many people representing the older systems. And so in some ways, China is really a startup nation, and there are benefits to being a startup nation. But again, China has these fake mythologies, and then the government just invests enormous resources into turning these fabrications into things that people feel are real. And maybe every country does that, but China does it at an industrial scale.
Isn't there a concern about if China was to invade Taiwan, that there's quite a lot of Chinese historical artifacts, museums, that would then be part of this destruction? Is that right?
I don't know if they'd be part of this destruction, but when Chiang Kai-shek and the nationalists retreated to Taiwan in 1949 after they'd lost the Chinese Civil War, they took the treasures, the greatest treasures of Chinese civilization with them, which are now part of this incredible museum in Taipei.
Have you been?
I have been. It's spectacular. And so China, which again under Mao destroyed its own history. I mean, there was a lot of great stuff that was left, and the manuscripts were burned. The treasures of art were smashed. The people who carried those cultural legacies were ostracized or even killed. And so, yeah, absolutely. So China is now claiming all of those artworks and masterpieces from Taiwan. Ironically, if the Chiang Kai-shek, and lots of problems with Chiang Kai-shek and the nationalists, hadn't taken those masterpieces with them, most of them would certainly have been destroyed.
What's happening, people? If you enjoyed that, then press here for the full, unedited episode. And don't forget to subscribe. Peace.